It was a very difficult time.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
I mean, builders that I knew committed suicide. There were many contractors that didn't survive.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
But the market just kept falling and falling, and sales literally just halted. Here I'm finally back on my feet, life seems good, and then you get clobbered along the side of the head with a 2x4.
You were diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I know you don't share the medical details, and I'm not gonna ask you for them.
So I just dove deep. I read book after book after book. I read case studies.
How did the illness change you as a builder?
I mean, the crap that's in our water, food, what's passed as healthy is banned in multiple countries. But
They hide that stuff.
our government says it's safe, so therefore we should just do what they say and eat it.
What responsibility do you feel when you put your name on a home?
I feel like,
Take me back to the beginning.
yeah, I got started selling real estate when I was 21, and I worked mainly with builders and developers, and so that really intrigued me. In school, I was drafting and actually thought I'd ultimately be an architect, and that didn't happen. And so I gravitated to guys that were building and creating. And as a broker, I was helping the builders I worked with redesign plans. And so I kind of fed that passion that I had about drawing.
That's awesome.
And after working with a handful of builders and developers for a while, decided to branch out on my own.
That's great. So what drew you to building specifically? Because you were an agent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What drew me to it is just the creative aspect of it. Having a barren piece of ground and creating something pretty cool out of it. And from a personal side of it, not only the creativity, but the fact that we were building something that was an environment for people to create memories for generations to come, and that just always felt like a pretty cool thing.
Okay, so there's a little bit of purpose behind the building then, not just like when you're getting into the business, it's deeper than just houses.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because when I started selling real estate, I'm a 21-year-old guy, so I'm working with my parents, friends, their kids. So I'm selling a lot of first-time home buyers, and the excitement that a first-time home buyer has for their first home is just infectious. And I really came in tune with that, and building homes is much the same way. People are so excited to get keys to their new home, and knowing that I've kind of created this place for them for another chapter in their life.
Love that.
It's just pretty cool.
I don't hear that a lot. So when you first started building, like what was the focus? Like it was obviously, so it's deeper than just building a house, right?
Right.
It was purposeful, but in like the actual building process, because as we know now, like you build a lot differently than you did back then. So what was like the early focus getting into it?
The early focus was just mirroring the builders that I worked with. A design that looked great, had nice finishes, had a good price point, and it would sell.
Okay.
I mean, that's
So it was basically just about building homes. Like you had a deeper meaning to what the home meant to the person on the other side of the transaction. But for you were just getting them up and getting them sold.
Yeah. The passion was the same as I had selling homes and working with buyers, but the assembly and building homes was mirrored off of my mentors at the time.
Gotcha. Okay. Don't go too much into, because we're going to talk about your health journey, but were the homes similar or not at all?
The first couple were similar. They were homes I designed. Hired a builder that I was actually working with that kind of helped me through that process. Those were my first two homes. And then when I actually started building homes myself, they were plans that I influenced and put together. And partner at the time, we developed a piece of ground, built some homes, and kind of got our traction going at that point in time. But again, it was just about building homes that look good and hit the right price point.
Okay. Where did the shift, the architect thing? I know you said you thought you were going to be an architect. Where did that, why did that stop, or where did you go?
Yeah, at the time when I graduated, or was, you're in your junior year and you're kind of looking at where to go to college, the architectural schools had backlogs in them. Apparently it was also I wasn't the only one that wanted to be an architect at the time, so I pivoted to engineering. I went to community college that I was paying for, and our local community college, Clackamas Community College, actually had one of the first computer-aided drafting programs on the West Coast, and that was super fascinating to me. So I took that class. Then our entire class was hired before it was even done. And computer-aided drafting, I lasted about a year. I was bored out of my mind. Okay. And a friend of my dad's owned a small real estate company in Canby, and said, hey, I know from your dad you're getting frustrated with your job. Would you consider real estate? And I was like, well, I had a couple friends getting their securities license, and so he made me a deal. He goes, do it for a year. If you don't like it, go follow your buddies and go sell securities. Okay. And the rest is history. That was 41 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Before the illness and everything, and again, we're going to talk about that, before everything changed and flipped, your whole business upside down.
Yeah.
Your business got flipped upside down a couple times.
Yeah.
Define, what was a well-built home? What did that mean to you? Or did it matter at all?
It did matter because it was something I was creating. So I did start to develop, or at least pay attention to some, what the mentors and the builders I was working with, they considered best practices. But in those early years, I was learning. I was a sponge. I felt like I had an advantage as well as a disadvantage. The disadvantage was no one in my family builds home, no one was a contractor, so there was no one really to lean on for that information. I had only the builders that I sold their homes for. The advantage, which is prominent in this industry, is the methodology of building is passed down from granddad to dad to uncle or whatever. And so I had no baseline.
No handouts.
So everything was, well, why not do that? I'd go to the International Builder Show or the Pacific Coast Builders Conference, and I'm learning from all over the country these different guys, and I was like, well, that makes sense. And so I was like the toddler that keeps asking why not? I kept asking trades, well, why can't we do that? Well, because we just do it this way. And I go, well, why not do it that way? And so the early years of building, and I'm still very much that way today, if I learn of a new product or a new system, they're not all great systems, but I still want to learn why we can't implement that.
So, explain to me, where does that curiosity come from?
It's a good question. No one's ever asked me that. I just think I'm curious by nature. When I was in real estate, I considered myself a student of real estate. I was constantly going to seminars, constantly reading books. I was trying to be a better broker. And I tackled building in much the same way. I'm constantly following new systems and technology. And once I discovered building science, I was like, this is cool. And saw there was a whole nother universe to building that I had no idea in those early years of building homes.
Okay. So I know this is going to be a tough question, but I feel like it's important. So if you were to look back after everything you've learned now, and again, we'll talk about that, what did you not yet understand back then about how homes actually affect people living in them?
I never understood until discovering building science how the inside of the home was just the interior, just how it was labeled. I had no comprehension of the interior was actually an environment, and systems have to work together. They're not just plugged in, which is what you just had.
You were just thinking four walls.
just thinking four walls. Had no understanding of the relationship from moisture passing and air management and balanced HVAC. I thought if the HVAC contractor put it in a system and air came out the vents,
it's ready to rock.
He did a good job.
Okay.
And moisture management just was something that wasn't even discussed even amongst us builders.
Where do you feel like most people get wrong in that whole four walls thing?
Yeah. It's really, I think what most people get wrong is they don't understand the science behind moisture movement. They don't appreciate the value or the importance of controlling air. I can't tell you through the years and through brokers, through builders, contractors, complaining that homes are too tight.
And what does that mean for somebody that doesn't know?
So old homes, they had shiplap on the exterior, shiplap, cedar roofs, and they breathe.
Okay.
So rotting wasn't as much of a prevalence because the home was constantly breathing, which from a airflow management is a positive thing, but from a comfort and an energy standpoint,
it's not.
You're just exhausted. All of your energy keeps. That's why when your thermostat kicks on in an older home, it's warm for a little bit, and then it's got to kick on again because everything's passed through the walls. So then in the 90s, we tightened the homes, and the consensus was in the building community, well, they're too, because homes were literally rotting from the inside out. And that was because no one understood air management at that point in time. And so, well, they didn't understand air management and they didn't understand moisture management. And so as science has improved and knowledge has improved, we understand that we have to manage air. We want to control the envelope to be as tight as possible. As far as I'm concerned, the envelope cannot be too tight. It's how do we manage the influx of air in and out, filtration. The ERV is a fascinating technology.
Explain that a little bit.
And the ERV, which is Energy Recovery Ventilator, the codes of Oregon and Washington just require air movement. So the mechanical system just pushes out stale indoor air, pulls in fresh air, which in and of itself is good, but it has no intelligence. So if it's a 100-degree day, it's pulling in 100-degree air into your air handler, then your air handler's got to work overtime to cool that down to room temperature. And like a cold day like today, it's pulling in that cold air, and then the air handler's got to heat it back up. The fascinating technology with an ERV is on that hot day, it's pulling hot air in, but it's pulling the energy out of the air that's exhausting 72 degrees, and it's cooling it down by the time it gets to the air handler, and then the reverse on a cold day. So your air handler is just modulating as it normally would without all that extra effort. And it has its own filters in that, which is a great defense on those smoke days that we get in the summertime, the heavy pollen in the springtime. So it's got a filter, and then your air handler has another filter, so it's your first line of defense.
Okay.
And with the intelligent systems like we have, like that monitor on the wall is constantly monitoring air quality, CO2 and humidity and other pollutants, and it's communicating to that ERV. So if you've got Thanksgiving dinner and your house is full of family members, CO2 levels rise, humidity rises, it senses that and it modulates up the ERV so that you're maintaining a constant air quality.
Yeah,
and the best part about it is the homeowner does nothing. It's the intelligence in the system that's doing all that for them.
Mm-hmm. And before you and I met, like I didn't know about any of this stuff. And now that I'm digging into some of it as we work together, it's fascinating to me how much this is like, it's hidden. You know what I mean? Like this information, it's not out of the forefront. And why do you think that is?
I think why it's not on the forefront is because our industry as a whole fights anything that is not the normal. That's why I was saying I felt like I had an advantage because I had I wasn't taught a certain way to build. Everything was new. It was like a whole clean canvas. And so with every energy code update, the builder, the National Association of Home Builders, the local BIA, the HB on the other, they fight every energy change. It's because they don't understand. I think you and I had talked about before, it isn't so much that builders are trying to cut corners. They don't understand the why. As the saying goes, understand a why, you can better understand any how. And that's really the issue, is they see it as just another regulation because they don't understand how it's really benefiting the occupants they're building homes for.
So you feel like you had an advantage because you didn't get passed down these like codes of ethics of building, right? Like, hey, this is just how it's done. And so as you're starting to learn all these things, you're like, whoa, wait a second. And you start being the person that questions it.
Yeah. And I think the bridge for that was because I've always been hungry for new information, wanting to learn. There's a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Woik who used to work with Energy Trust, actually Earth Advantage. And what I appreciated about him is he had practical knowledge behind every upgrade. So we were my original partner. It was our very first project. We were just building the way we thought you were supposed to build, and he'd show up on the job site, go, what if you try this? Here's the component, here's how it will benefit your homeowners. And I was like, okay. Initially I thought, he's just an ideologue, he's just pushing a utopian home. Yeah. But he had practical knowledge to back up every single suggestion.
He thought he was a tree hugger.
Yeah. But in talking with him, he always had a practical why to the how. And it was kind of one of those things where, and I give him credit because it was his interaction with me and teaching me with every visit that it was like I got down the road and all of a sudden looked back and here we were building certified homes and I hadn't really appreciated it. And I think one of the things that truly gets lost, and I always get frustrated with builders that push back on this so hard, is when one of the very first communities that I developed, a local builder, very large, and I hadn't started building of any size at the time, wanted to joint venture with us. And I saw it as a huge opportunity, again, because I want to learn, and here's a big company, and I got a chance to look behind the curtains on their operation. Yeah. So I was like, yes, let's do this. And they were showing me how they build out budgets, how they manage warranty, and at the time they were putting $2,500 aside for every home for warranty. I just thought that was normal. So when we started building, we put aside the same thing. What I didn't realize in the journey to build better homes was that because of the third-party oversight and the checklist and the things that we do through construction, the warranty costs continued to drop. So most builders they're just conditioned, we set aside this much for warranty, it's just the way it is, it's in our budget. We started seeing our warranty costs plummet to where we were especially when we had very large townhome communities, we were putting $500 in for warranty, and some homes we barely touched it. Wow. Because of the oversight through the process. Everything was being monitored, everything had to follow best practices. And so not only was it a business decision that surprised us to the bottom line, but customer complaints fell, HVAC complaints fell. The warranty issues that were coming through our system were dropping. And so it was kind of the unrealized benefit for both company and homeowner that we didn't even realize.
Wow. So 2008 hits and destroys the construction industry, the real estate industry. We all know the headlines, but I want to hear from your perspective as a builder right in the middle of it. Take me back to 2008. In that moment, what was that like?
It was a very difficult time. I mean, builders that I knew committed suicide. There were many contractors that didn't survive financially. I believe one of the statistics I heard at the time is 80% of the building industry had found other industries. And then as the market ramped up, our industry struggled to get people back to fill those positions. It was just we're seeing increase after increase, for appreciation, which as a builder, that's awesome. But then you see markets like Bend that collapse to 50% of value. And we're getting our notes called from banks that I think the eye opener for, the banks treat you like they're your partner until they're not. And they're reevaluating your loans, and then they're asking you to bring up, 7 figures worth of money to pay down project loans. And we didn't have the money in the bank that they were calling on us. And it was a hard time because, a lot of us were living the dream. We had our kids in the right schools, and we had the cars and the homes, and the production levels we had in those days was 125, 150 homes that we were building, and we thought we had the system down to a fine oiled machine. We were never a large company employee-wise, but we were building a lot of product.
So again, take me back to the moment. When do you realize that this is not just like a slowdown and everything's gonna fall apart?
Yeah, I think the reality was going to IBS, International Builder Show, and about a year and a half before the market tanked here, I'm talking with builders in various platforms and whatever. I don't remember if we were in Florida, wherever it was those early times, and builders are going, how's it going in Oregon? It's like, oh, it's going great. Yeah, well, still building spec homes? Like, oh yeah. And so it basically had shut down about everywhere else in the country. And a lot of us here felt like our economy here was too good and things weren't going to happen. I was trying to be proactive, and we were, slowing down production, and we were really trying to trim costs and doing the prudent things that you would think you would do. The project that I had at the time was actually penciled initially that it worked even if there was no appreciation. So I thought I bought this project being extremely conservative, and then with my additional measures, I was safe. And it did not turn out that way.
You told me the story that you took a risk during that time, right? Didn't you buy into a project that you thought, okay, like I'm in at the right time, this is when everything's on sale, and then it went down farther? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so my prior business partner at the time, we had just finished a large project. That was when he went his own way and I went mine, at 111 unit condominium project in St. John's, which was a wild success. So I was ready for another project of that size. I bought a piece of property that I developed into 115 townhomes, and by all metrics, the property was a little higher than I had planned, but our numbers still worked based on the numbers of a project we literally just completed. And we got into it, sales started to work out good, and then it's like they just stopped. And unfortunately at the time, D.R. Horton had a project not too many miles away, and when that Goliath starts dropping prices, you think, okay, well, I've got a better location. I had an A location, they had a B, more like a C location. Our finishes were better. I mean, not being biased, the products were very different.
And it should have worked.
It should have worked. So I thought, okay, as long as I maintain this gap between their prices, my location has the better sales value. Okay. But I learned that they can go to the bottom. Us small builders can't chase the Goliaths to the bottom because of how they do their books. And so I realized that wasn't working, so we came back up in price. We still got a few more sales. We changed up our marketing at the time. But the market just kept falling and falling, and sales literally just halted.
Okay. So during 2008, like we discussed, a lot of builders went under. You survived. barely,
Yeah.
as you've told me.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of that period for you?
I think the hardest part was kind of looking in, you know, one of the things with that time frame was I really felt I had the building process and development dialed. So it was a humbling experience because I thought I had finally worked out the kinks. I understand systems and processes. I had a great team at the time, and I think I've shared with you my accountability mirror, and having to look in that mirror and go, no, you didn't. And you know, when the market's ramping up, it covers a lot of mistakes and fixes a lot of things that you don't know are broken because the market keeps moving up, and the undercurrent is what you don't realize until it falls, and then you see where you had weak links.
Okay, so during that time you saw where the holes were.
Yeah.
What were those holes?
The holes were cost management. The prices were going up, so our sales prices were covering a lot of things we weren't aware of. We were, you know, overpaying for this, and we had, you know, we weren't aggressively shopping trades because we had our guys, you know, and we needed projects completed, so we paid them what they asked. We weren't as aggressive on it as we needed to. We had internal systems that were flawed. And so after the market tanked and we basically had to rebuild, I personally rebuilt every single system, process, scope of work. I took the time. It's easy for our society right now to see ourselves as victims. And it's also very easy when you're talking with family members and friends. You know, the old saying, you learn who your true friends are when things collapse because they all run away.
Yep.
The heartwarming thing for me is they all ran in. It's good and bad because they're supporting you, they believe in you, they love you, they're there for you, but they don't get what you're going through.
They don't have the skin in the game.
They don't. And so there was a couple other builders that I would meet with. We'd meet for coffee just so we could have that interaction because they had very similar scenarios, but they knew that the communication truly didn't understand the pain that we were going through. And it was very easy at that time for builders to just complain about the market. I knew that wasn't right by looking in the mirror for myself. I knew that, yes, the market fueled it, but it was my own internal systems, processes, and business management that allowed that to happen. So taking that ownership, that extreme ownership, is what made me literally just dissect everything. Where did we fail? What did we do wrong? How can we do better? And just spent, you know, months and months and months taking every single system by itself and rebuilding it. And I see every system we have is fluid. So I'm not that impressed with myself that I know the right answers to everything. And that's why I was saying I'm constantly trying to learn and better myself. And you know, we've got a great project manager here with far more construction experience. I learn from him every day because I choose to. And we're still evolving. You know, the same house we built today won't probably be built tomorrow because we'll learn something between the time we build that house. Not that the home today isn't what we consider the way things should be built, but I know I'm going to learn something by tomorrow that I'm going to want to implement in that house.
Love that. Hard question. Did you think about throwing in the towel?
I'm sure those thoughts popped into my mind. I had plenty of friends and family say, well, what are you going to do now? So keep in mind, by 2008, I had been in the real estate industry in some form or another for almost, 1986, so almost 30 years at that time. And I kind of looked at them and I said, I don't know what else I would do. It's what I have such a passion for. I have a passion for the sales side of things. I have a passion for the design side, and the creativity part of my brain feeds on creating something out of nothing. And so I can't say that I didn't think about it, but it didn't consume me, because I looked at the situation as it was my fault that happened to my company. And my company's got my name on it. So it's my baby and my passion. And so to see it go to ashes, I wasn't going to accept. And so I just, like I said, I went through to rebuild everything, learned from my flaws, learned from my mistakes, and tried to be better for it.
Okay. So you survived, you made it through, but I imagine coming out of something like that, you can't just go back to doing what you were doing. I know you talked about you changed some of the systems, but what did rebuilding after 2008 force you to rethink about how you run projects and how you run the business? Was it just the systems?
It was, because the systems...
I know we talked about mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
Go into that. Can you go into that for me?
Yeah. I mean, mindset was not kind of feeding off of my accountability mirror aspect of the things is I am in control of this. My actions do. I am responsible for the outcomes of my actions, and really tried to work through just staying positive. In fact, my voicemail is still the same today. During that time, I said, tell me something good and I'll call you back. And I get more and more people go, man, I love your voicemail. But I had to fight through it with a positive attitude. And I just saw everything as an opportunity, no matter how dark it might have been at that time, or what was facing me, or who I had to call. And I just knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and it wasn't just a train coming back at me.
So who is the Tony before 2008 versus right now?
I think the Tony at 2008 was, in some sense, blinded by the success of what I had built at that time. I mean, I don't come from any lap of luxury at all. And I was living that life that I knew someday I would have. And I think there's a situation where when you get into where all cylinders are firing and everything's working perfect, you lose sight of key principles. I think it's John Maxwell that says is you don't learn during good times. Your education comes from the down times. So I didn't learn as much as I thought I did in those good times, but I went through the school of hard knocks in the down times. And the growth period in that is probably a growth period that I know that I hadn't experienced prior to that.
So we're almost a decade after 2008. You face something that not only challenged your business, but your entire philosophy about building. You were diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I know you don't share the medical details, and I'm not going to ask you for them, but I do want to talk about what that experience taught you, and specifically about the homes that we live in. How did the illness change you as a builder?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, to that journey, we were already building, healthy performance homes. At the time, I thought the focus was more on energy performance. Was starting to learn a little bit through building science how the indoor environment actually impacts your living. But man, when that hit, kind of, after the first couple months of the why me, I just met the most amazing woman that's now my wife. And here I'm finally back on my feet. Life seems good. And then you get clobbered along the side of the head with a 2x4. And so after that emotional roller coaster, I kind of attacked it in the same way I have with real estate and business. My wife and I just sat down and go, okay, we got this. And, she's taught me a lot about naturopathic care and other, Chinese medicine and finding alternatives. So I just dove deep. I read book after book after book. I read case studies. I learned all different protocols. And I was just obsessed with the fact that, not the fact, but with learning your environment. We all have, disease cells in our body, but it's going to take something emotionally, physically, or environmental that activates that cell and turns it into something terminal. And it was just such a foreign thing to me. And I just wanted to learn more. And because of already having at least a door open to building science, I just kept going into that deeper. And just realizing, the crap that's in our water that most people just have no idea. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately people rely on oversight to go, oh no, it's healthy. And it's not. Our food, what's passed as healthy, is banned in multiple countries. Mm-hmm. But
they hide that stuff.
Our government says it's safe, so therefore we should just do what they say and eat it. And it's not a anti-Big Brother thing, it's just an understanding and education thing. When I learned our beef isn't even allowed in multiple countries. A lot of our foods are, dairy and things of that nature is not allowed anywhere else. A lot of the things that have been banned in other countries are now, because of our societal awareness here, there's pressure to have the FDA ban certain things. It's mind-blowing. I didn't know any of that until I started digging into research. How can I eat healthy? And I dove deep into keto to make the terrain of my body as healthy as possible, and learned about healthy foods and organic and grass-fed and just hormones and toxins and all the crap that is allowed in just regular food that we think is healthy. And then when you actually start peeling back the onion, you realize, holy cow. And so the fun thing about it is, it's the life that my wife and I live, and it's starting to, we're seeing adoption with our kids are now starting to do the same thing. And I'm living proof that it's the right choice. Mm-hmm. But it's the understanding of that environment, both physically and environmentally, that I really started taking a whole new perspective of what I was delivering to homeowners. And because I had already kind of started pushing aside energy efficiency, when I talk about our philosophy of building, I'm talking about, health and comfort, resilience. Energy efficiency is the byproduct of everything. It's that health and comfort, which is the top of the pyramid for us. And everything I look at is through what my wife and I have kind of on our own made ourselves guinea pigs to research, this and then learn more about that. And that's where reverse osmosis came about. I actually learned that from my wife. Wow. And being here in Clark County, I know what hard water is. And setting our homes up, I learned from one of our vendors that one of the common comments that he gets when he's installing these systems is they wished their builder would have at least put in a loop for them or made preparations, because now they're tearing open walls and doing all this stuff. And hearing that from him, it's like, well, we can do that. And now we do it standard.
I like that. I feel like in every transformational story, there's like this light bulb moment where something clicks. When, during this time, during this illness, was there like a specific moment when you start saying, oh, wow, the home could actually be a part of the problem? Or it could help it?
Yeah, I think it was during the initial phase of treatments and whatever that, because I was relentless. I was reading and studying and following different doctors that were commenting on, environmental aspects of what creates these illnesses. And I don't know if there was like one light bulb moment, because there was a stretch there where I was just obsessed with learning, that I kept seeing the same comment come up more and more and more about, air, water, and, environment. The people that are around you. If you have negative people around you, they're negatively affecting your environment. Mm-hmm. And so I would say if there was a window in time where the light bulb really came full volume, was going to be in those, that first year of working through that process of healing, that it was like, okay, I need to start implementing these features, and you can't eat the elephant in one bite. So it was like, let's try this and let's try that. And we've tried multiple products. We have manufacturers that will ask us to use their product and try it. So we've tried multiple different products and systems, and with great expertise from our project manager, we learn and fine tune systems with every single house. But it would probably be, I was finally healed in January of 2019, and once, it's kind of that aha moment, like, I have a second chance on life. I'm going to make, the biggest impact out of this that I possibly can. And so I want to make a legacy. I want to leave a legacy not only for our children, but people around us. And if I can somehow impact our homeowners in some way, and I think it was shortly thereafter that I started putting the plaques in the driveways, because it's like, I can't be more proud of this home, and this is my mark, this is my signature.
That has to be a great feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so your 3 priorities, from what I know, are air, water, and the materials. Start with air.
Okay. Air is huge, and it's definitely one of the things that, like we've talked about, that builders don't pay attention to, and I don't think it's for lack of trying to cut corners. They simply don't understand building science. And I hear rumblings at various meetings and talking to builders that they're just adamant that homes are too tight. And I argue they're not tight enough. We every year try to get our homes tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and we keep changing our specification for home to keep dropping it, because we've got intelligent air management that is controlling the air quality within the home. And every penetration and any pore and crevice on the envelope of the home, the shell, however you term it, is either sucking or pushing contaminants, insects. One of the common comments we get from people that was almost like a byproduct that I hadn't thought of was dust management. People comment that their homes, they're just surprised from the prior home how little dust. But at the end of the day, it makes sense. If you've controlled the envelope tight enough, you don't have pathways for dust to come in, and more importantly, contaminants. But I never really thought about the dust until I start hearing this comment from homeowners. So I know that there's almost kind of like multifaceted benefit from that. But air management is huge. We're spending greatest portion of our life indoors, and when you've got the EPA considering that it's one of the 5th health concerns for Americans, because the air in most homes and businesses and offices is worse than the air outside the house, that's alarming. I didn't know that either until I started digging into things. Mm-hmm. And so having this be the optimal air quality is what everyone should expect. And there's, you and I talked about it a lot, there's no price tag to put on optimal health. Not to mention, what's the cost of continual doctor visits to maintain the health, why not just have a sanctuary that's healthy 24/7?
I agree.
And air is obviously the most critical one.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the water. This shocked me. Some of the things I've seen on the EWG website, I've done my own research as well.
Yeah.
Some of these contaminants that are 4,000 times higher than what's considered safe. Talk to me about water.
Yeah. I think if anyone listening to this has not heard of EWG, I always tell everybody that comes in when we start talking about reverse osmosis, plug your zip code in. I guarantee regardless of where you live, you'll be mortified, because it's considered safe, but health officials will disagree. And when you see the contaminants that they've identified, they've researched and done testing on every single public water system in the United States, and they're all bad. Just some are worse than others. And now you see the influence in pharmaceuticals, because they're so highly used in our population. Waste processing plants aren't capable of filtering all that out, so it's making it right back into our public water system. And it's not just me talking. This is research anybody can find. It's alarming. And so that's where we discovered reverse osmosis. It's truly the only system that can truly purify out those impurities and give you, pure water. The Brita and the refrigerator filter, it doesn't cut it. It might make you feel good, but if you're truly concerned about pure water and microplastics and heavy metals, and they'll get some metals out, but to me, the microplastics and the pharmaceuticals and the carcinogens and those types of things, those have to be filtered out, and the regular filters will not do that. A lot of whole home water filtration systems won't do that. It's the technology in that reverse osmosis that actually can do that.
Talk to me about the materials. What's actually in the products that most builders are building with versus what you build with?
Yeah, so for instance, we are a James Hardie market, but we specifically specify James Hardie. We won't allow anything built or installed on the exterior of our homes that's not rot resistant. There are wood trim products that admittedly we used when we started too, because that's what the builders that I learned from did, that will literally rot out in 5 to 10 years. We want to build a home for generations, so everything on the exterior has got to be rot resistant. And cabinetry, formaldehyde free, low VO or no VOC paints and caulks throughout the home. We are very conscious of that off-gassing. Everybody thinks they like the new car smell, but all the new car smell is off-gassing that they're inhaling.
Wow.
And when you start really getting granular on some of this stuff, furniture, that really potent finish smell, that's gas that you're inhaling, and it is not healthy for you. But we get a feel-good sensation because it's brand new and we're smelling that new sensation. But when you really start paying attention to it and you start realizing how these things affect you, your whole mind shifts.
A near-death experience, kind of surviving this, right? What does that actually look like in practice today, and how do you build now?
Yeah. What it looks like today is our whole focus is on the health and wellness of our homeowners. And it kind of, lack of a cliche, it's I'm walking the walk. It's how I live my life. It's how my wife and I live. It's how we're encouraging our kids to live. And if I can depart any of my discovery to educate our homeowners and create that environment, that's the legacy that I want to leave. And I just find in talking to people, they just don't know what they don't know. And I don't want to be the pusher of knowledge and you got to know this, but I want to be able to make enough preparations in the home that I at least raise the question, well, what is that? They don't have to install the reverse osmosis, but I've prepared it for them, and I have enough content to show them the value, how it benefits them, but no one has to do that. The whole house water filter or water softener system, they don't have to install it, but I've made it easy just to plug and play if they want to. But I feel like I keep opening the door. I think an educated consumer makes far better decisions than someone that just doesn't know what they don't know. And we've got placards all around the house here explaining the why and what the feature is. And some walk in and they go, oh my gosh, yes, I've got to have reverse osmosis. I read that too and it's horrible. And other people are like, God, I'd never even heard about that. Well, if I impacted that one person who didn't know, then it was all worth it.
After 25 years of building, surviving 2008, and having a near-death experience, you build homes completely different now than you did before. Not because you want to, and these are your words, but because you have to. What does that mean?
It means that it's kind of like you can't unsee what you've seen. I can't unlearn what I've learned. And I feel like I can't, with good conscience, I referred to it earlier, the accountability mirror. I can't look in that mirror and tell myself I'm building a home that I believe is the right home if I know it doesn't meet the metrics that I believe are important for an indoor, the indoor environment of a home. And if I'm truly going to walk the walk and build homes that I believe should stand for generations, I can't build them with an assembly that isn't best practices. And that's why we committed to certifying our homes to hold us continually on every home to that higher standard. And there's very few builders around here that will certify every home. Every home we build must be certified because it keeps us in line, and it keeps reminding the trades that if you're going to work for us, Jacob's going to be showing up to verify this, and if it's not right, you're going to be correcting it. And so it's like that extra, that third set of eyes or fourth set of eyes. It's constantly, they're not our employee, it's a third-party company, but they're always keeping us in line.
And accountable.
Yeah.
You and I are kind of working on your branding right now, right? Why do you believe that health is the highest form of luxury?
Because when you don't have it, you wish you did, and you'd spend any amount of money to get it back. And that's where I was. I felt like I was at the bottom of the abyss, and there was, when you're the easy path for me at that time would have followed the Western medicine path to get healthy. The most expensive way was the natural way, but my wife and I, the cost didn't matter. My health and my recovery without side effects was the right path. And that was really, you hear it from any number of people talking about, talking to a lot of people in their 80s and 90s, and when their health is failing, what's their priority now? And health is one of the number one things. And so if we can somehow influence a healthy environment and wealth and align health with luxury, because unlike a high-end appliance or cabinetry and faucets, which we as a society consider luxuries, health shouldn't be that luxury. It should be expected.
I like that. So when people come to build with Marnella, what are they focused on? Like, what have you seen is the common thread between the people that build with Marnella?
The people that seek us out are focused on health and wellness. If we get kind of lumped into the custom builder, there are people that are still focused on what's the best finish, what's your price per foot, and they're content with a code builder. And but the people that we build for, our homeowners here, they see value in the health and wellness features that are in our homes.
I think the thing that's hard about the things that you represent is that you can't see them.
Yeah.
Go into that.
Yeah, you made a great comment calling the invisible details. And I've said for years, what's behind the sheetrock is far more important than anything on the exterior, because that's far more costly to go in and fix, poor assembly and poor processes than changing out cabinets and surfaces and fixtures. And how a home is framed, how it's air sealed, how the weather barrier is assembled are all the critical things, and that's where the hyper attention to detail. The reality is, even though we've seen poor fit and finish on homes, in the big picture, that's the easy part. Doing tile right, installing flooring right, putting cabinets in right, that's easy. And I'm not saying that the details behind the sheetrock are hard. They're just details that are overlooked. And like we said earlier, I don't think they're necessarily overlooked to cut corners. They're overlooked because the contractors don't understand the why. Mm-hmm. They just think it's an unnecessary detail because they don't really truly understand how it's impacting that home and its performance. Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about, dive deeper in that. Talk a little bit about why people are so focused on like the aesthetic of the home versus where they could be putting their money, where they get the ultimate return, which is their health, right? Why do you think we're so focused on that? You think it's a knowledge gap?
That's actually a good way to state it. I think it is a knowledge gap, because I think if people truly understood the impact of health on their homes, because it doesn't get talked about. If you're tuned into the right channels, like myself, I've heard about this for years. But builders are selling square footage, finish, room count, bathroom count, lot size, and it's what's photographs well is what people focus on. That's why I like the term that we use is return on wellness, because ROI, return on investment, is how most things are calculated. The irony in that is a client will get married to a $10,000 countertop slab material that doesn't move the needle on ROI at all, but no one's educating them on, do you realize you could still have a gorgeous countertop, but if you invested a few $1,000s into a reverse osmosis system, that return has no value. I mean, it's immeasurable what that value is, but your family drinks purified water. And so I think it's distorted in some sense, where people get hung up on cost for something they can touch, and if they can't see it or they don't understand the why behind that feature, they can't justify the value. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of it is, there was a statistic that I read several years ago is, regular maintenance is 1/15 the cost of replacement. I know there's no way to calculate that from a health sense, but I have to believe if you're constantly sick, you're constantly buying supplements and medications for brain fog and fatigue and lack of energy and any multitude of things, people are not connecting the dots that their house could very well be the one causing all that. And if they understood that, if you calculated all those doctor visits, all that medication, all those supplements, and all those things that they're doing, I guarantee you that the reverse osmosis or some of the other features that we would suggest, there's a much lower cost in that than their health.
I would agree. So I want to kind of tie this all together. 25 years in the industry, financial crisis, terminal illness, you have a transformation. What responsibility do you feel when you put your name on a home?
I feel like people, whether they're buying one of our finished homes or they're hiring us to build a home for them, my responsibility is the professional that they see me as, to depart the information that I have. And like I said earlier, people don't know what they don't know. And I feel like it's my responsibility to share what I know. They could take or leave it, like I said, about the various systems we prep the homes for. They don't have to install them, but I want them at least know the why behind why that system is there. And I do the same thing with our trades. If we get through a process and the trade goes, well, you could have done it this way. my comment to them every time is, well, why didn't you bring it up? You're the plumber, you're the electrician, you're the HVAC. That your sole core business is that scope of work. Why wouldn't you bring it up? Well, you didn't ask. Drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. But I take that same philosophy because it drives me crazy. I know that that homeowner or that client doesn't know the question to ask me either. So my duty to them as their building professional is to share with them, hey, this is why we do what we do, and this is why this is important, and walk them through that journey. And whether they install the systems that we put in or not, that's up to them, but I can walk away going, at least they know. Now they understand. If they want, we've got a homeowner here, they didn't want the reverse osmosis or the water softener, now they do. Mm-hmm. But they can just plug and play with whatever vendor they want. But they've learned through working with us, and now the other homeowners here that have added those systems are like, oh, yeah, I think that does make sense now. So I think it's just educating people, sharing my knowledge, and if I kept it to myself, what value is that?
I like that.
Yeah.
You have an incredible story, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you.